Anything to add to the agenda? No.
No.
We have a couple people in the audience. Are y'all just students listening in?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Is it for a class?
Yeah.
Which class?
NR 602, environmental policy.
Okay, great. Cool. I think we've had a couple of y'all before. Thanks for showing up. Y'all got anything else?
Nope.
No, good to go.
I've got some data on the EV charging, if we have time, stick it in.
Oh yeah, that's great. Let's try to do that around the CPCNH stuff.
Okay.
Cool. All right, great. So I think we're good to accept the minutes.
Do we need to do anything special with Zoom or Steve?
Should probably check for signs of life.
Last time I had to be admitted with a,
Yeah.
we had to do a motion to
Yeah,
admit
thank you.
somebody or something.
Everything has to be by roll call.
Yeah, to allow the remote member to participate, which is Steve Holmgren. And that should be by roll
There's
call.
Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Okay, so I guess we'll take this as Steve's here and present. Hi, Steve.
So there's a motion right there.
Yeah.
What is the motion?
Motion to allow Steve to participate via Zoom.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Cool. Great. Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Anything to do with the minutes? No? Motion to accept the minutes?
Yep.
All in favor, Steve?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
I have to abstain from the minutes.
Yep. Aye.
Did you abstain?
All right, I read the minutes, so I can vote on
Yeah, you just have to have been present.
it. I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Oh,
so-
right.
But I can
Okay.
read them.
I guess it's mostly just down to Mike then.
Aye.
Aye, great. Okay, cool. So the next order of business is new members, turning over a new leaf, if you will. Emily is gone, right? This is your last day, right?
Right, yeah.
Just starting the conversation. I don't really know where to. I'm starting on how many people are leaving, and then we have 2 people to add.
So Emily was
And-
oh, go ahead.
Do you want me to, I can go through it if you'd like. I've got all the
Please
names.
do, by all means.
All right, so we've got 11 people, 11 slots on the committee. One of them is a council representative, and Eric Lund has been replaced by Robin Vogt.
Yep.
This is Robin, a member of the council.
Welcome.
M. Friedrichs had been the planning board rep. We don't know who the new planning board rep will be. The planning board has to appoint somebody, so that will be coming. It may be M, it may not, I just don't know. Michael Konopko stepped down from the committee, and so we have 1 vacancy there. And then Jack has let us know he's not seeking reappointment, so there'll be a second vacancy there. And we have 2 individuals who've expressed interest in coming on the committee. One is Malcolm Brown, who is on Zoom this evening.
Yep.
And the second is Andrew Coppins, who's here in the audience this evening.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so with that, since we have Andrew here, I don't know if you would like to say anything or if you'd just like to observe today.
I don't have any prepared remarks. So,
Please don't-
I'm happy to,
don't feel
happy
forced.
to answer any questions, or maybe you all saw some of the brief comments I provided on the application. Happy to expand on those.
Yeah.
Whatever you'd like. Yeah.
I personally have not reviewed the application.
and
Maybe just tell us
If you
your
could
interest in.
come to a microphone though, so they
Yeah.
can hear you on.
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
And the application is a perfect amount of detail, yeah. Whatever inspired you, motivated you, any part of that would be just wonderful to hear on, yeah, for those of us who don't get circulated the application.
Yeah, sure. So in the most general sense, I'm just, my wife and I have been Durham residents for coming on 3 years, but just nearby. I lived in Newmarket since 2015, and have kind of been interested in serving communities for a while. This seemed like a good opportunity. I was kind of waiting for one that kind of a match of my interests and and things like that. So here in Durham, we built a FIA certified passive house. Learned an incredible amount through that process. Not only about the building technologies and things like that, but also about practicalities of financing, which is that's a whole other ball of wax as well. But I think issues that are probably relevant to community members who might be interested or curious about going in this direction. So thought I might have something to offer. Great. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Extremely exciting, and congrats on
Great.
completing that project.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah.
Not simple.
No.
Yeah, we talk about the built environment a lot, so
Okay.
I think that's really great.
Excellent.
And I think we'll be happy to have you.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And I believe we'll get to the perfunctory stage of voting on the appointment. Is that a next meeting thing?
Typically, you, the chair, would talk with the individual who's interested and then
Right.
send an email or a letter just saying you've met with them and you
Yep.
think they'd be a good addition.
Yep.
And then we'll bring the name to the council and the council would make the appointment.
Okay. Yeah, since we hadn't had that personal conversation, that's what I figured. And Malcolm stated on the phone today that he wanted to listen in before putting in his application. But Malcolm, if you have anything that you want to say to the committee at large, that's great as well.
This is Malcolm Brown. Hi, everybody. I've been a resident of Durham for about 13 years now. And I did have a chat with Matthias earlier today, and I'm eager to be considered to join the Energy Committee. I was just waiting on my application because I needed just one more reference to get on the page, and then I'm going to send it off to Karen for your consideration.
Great. Thank you so much, Malcolm.
Do you want to have him tell his background?
If he wants to.
Oh, sure. How much detail do you want? No, as I said, I've lived in Durham for about 12 years. I live right almost a stone's throw away from Newmarket, so I'm right on the Lamprey kind of. We could probably throw a rock over to Newmarket. And I just think that, the energy and the associated climate issues are just hugely, hugely important. I don't think it's exaggerating to say we're in a state of crisis around all that. And I, for myself, have tried to pursue ways in terms of lessening my climate footprint. For example, I've been driving a hybrid car since 2015. I took advantage of a state program to efficientize the insulation of my house. I've had heat pumps installed, trying to get away from the heating oil and things like that. So I think that's all really important. And I'm looking forward to working with this group and the town in general to kind of see what we can pursue.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. Great.
Did we intend for the TVs to be off, or do we need to ask the AV folks to give them a bump?
So I think when Steve Holmgren unmutes his image, he'll come back up. But as long
he's
as
the
everyone's
focus.
muted,
Got it.
there it's blank, I think is what's happening.
And we're back. You know the drill. Thank you. Just want to make sure it wasn't a glitch. No pressure to be on camera.
You need an icon.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have anything of note when it comes to new members or leaving or anything like
Just
that?
a complex math question. Where does this put us with the goings and the comings? Do we still have 2 openings? Are we at 9?
this will fill us back up.
Fill us back up
And
completely.
then we
Wonderful.
just need the planning board appointment,
Nice.
which will probably happen at their next month, is my
Super.
bet.
So that's including my vacancy, right?
Yes, yes.
Todd?
I think, well, hold on. Ty Crossman also, he's let us know he's not continuing, so we'll still have one vacancy.
Yeah, I think we're going to be down
He can-
one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And one of the things, it's kind of ironic because I brought this up in June that I noticed when I joined the committee, it was 50% men and 50% women. And maybe it was me, but something's changed. And so I asked the
Yeah.
question, is there anything we're doing that makes it harder for half the population not to participate? And so if there is still a vacancy, I think we ought to pay attention to encouraging as many people from the population as possible to be
Second
part of
that.
this.
Thank you.
Todd, is there a term limit on the UNH rep?
It's a lifetime appointment. Congratulations. No, it's as long as you're willing to continue.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so this is our UNH representative, so.
Nice try.
Yes.
Would it be okay if you guys went around and introduced yourselves? I'm just trying to get a feel for who's on the committee, who's reps and things like that.
Oh, yeah, we'd be happy to.
I know it's not your normal meeting agenda, but if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's totally great. You know, we never got the fancy name tags or anything, so. Do you want to start? We'll just go around.
I'm Charlie Forsey. I live in the faculty neighborhood here since 1999, so 26 years. I was on the committee for a period in the 10s and early teens, and helped with Todd's great leadership to do some of the early solar arrays and the gravel pit solar array, and that power purchase agreement at a time when that was pretty fresh, and the financing and everything was quite complicated. Yeah, I'm just thrilled to be back. I switched jobs, needed to take some time off and work California hours, but now without leaving. But now I'm back, and I'm thrilled to be back. Todd, we know you, but
I'm Todd Selig, I'm the administrator for the town. So I'm not a member of the committee, I'm a staff person, but I come to various meetings, and I'm here this evening.
So you work for the town?
I do, yes.
and sorry, professionally, I'm work for Sustainability Roundtable Inc., a Boston sustainability consultancy firm, as their chief technology officer. So a little bit of coding, a little bit of sustainability.
And are you on the committee?
Yes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Robin Vogt. I'm a town councilor here on the Durham Town Council. I have been living in faculty neighborhood since the end of 2023, so I am still getting my feet wet in the Durham political scene. But I come from serving a term in the New Hampshire State Legislature, serving on the House Environment and Agriculture Committee. You know, I have a real passion. I work for the League of Conservation Voters as my daytime job, working in policy advocacy, so this has a lot of meaning to me and to all the work that everybody does here, so appreciate
I was
it.
going to say, we've met, I just don't know if you remember.
I do. Your face very familiar. We'll connect after for sure.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm Matthias Dean Carpenter. I've been here since I moved to Durham at the end of 2020. I'm a renewable energy engineer by trade. I build large-scale solar arrays for a living. So I showed up here a couple times, and then they were like, "You should sit here." So I've been here ever since.
So I'm Jack Lanneman. I think I've been on the committee since Charlie left, or maybe somewhere around 2016. I think my focus with the committee has been primarily on making EV charging more available in the town. We replaced a charger at the library fairly early on, and then we worked out to get more there. And recently, I wrote a grant that the Federal Government Infrastructure Act was supposed to cover, and we succeeded in getting the money, or the grant. Got the notice in January, and then about 10 days later, there was an executive order from someone saying you can't have your money.
We had tried like 5 years in a row to get this grant.
Yeah.
Finally, we got it, and then.
So that's my sort of my outgoing swan song. The grant sits there frozen in time. I'm retired, but 3 years before that, I was at UNH for 39 years as a professor of communication.
I'm Ty Crossman. I'm a resident in Durham. I moved here in 2001, I believe. And this is actually my last meeting. I'm with Jack and heading out the door. But I've been mostly interested myself in the EV charging stations and the EV ordinance, getting that new ordinance written up and maybe introduced.
Maybe, we'll see.
So I'm on my way out.
So Mike Klein, I'm a Durham, excuse me, Mike Klein, I'm a Durham resident also. I've been here since 2018, went to UNH way back in the 90s. Let's see, my day job, I use a lot of machine learning and artificial intelligence, which consumes a ton of energy. So, and I have two young boys. Yeah, and I have two young boys that I want to have a planet in the future. So I'm volunteering on different things, and this is one of them.
Hi, I'm Matt Davis. I'm the UNH representative on the committee. I'm a faculty in earth sciences. My research is largely in renewable energy. My charge is to find synergies between the university and the committee. We're still exploring those, but I think there's opportunities. So if you guys are UNH students and are interested, let's talk about some opportunities.
I'm Mike Lerman. I'm an 8-year resident of Durham, retired healthcare executive. I've had a long-term interest in energy issues. I had designed and built a passive solar home way back in the 80s. So it's just been an area of interest and something to get involved with the town with.
Thank you.
And Steve.
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, I'm Steve Holmgren. I've been a resident here for about 12 years now. I'm a retired engineer, was with AT&T. I'm very interested in energy issues, the climate, etc. I put solar panels on my house after I moved here. Been driving electric cars for about going on 7 years now. So I thought the Energy Committee was a great way to try to get involved and to work with like-minded people in the community to help others, see the light, so to speak.
And then you found yourself running CPCNH for the town. Like a crazy person.
So that came along the way. We got Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire was an organization that got started by a number of people up in Lebanon and New Hampshire and elsewhere. And at some point, a couple of members of this committee, went to a couple meetings and started finding out more about it, and we eventually got the word spread to the town, and so we now get our power from this organization in Durham, and it's been an interesting experience and ongoing.
Your question was very appropriate because now we've introduced ourselves to all the other new members. And good question.
No, it's been a while since someone asked. We went through that. I'm not sure we've actually ever gone around and done that. So, thank you. With that, we should probably move on to kind of a meeting item that's been floating around for a while. New chair. I'm tired of this. We had a concept of the vice chair come up. I think we should probably talk about what we want the vice chair to do and be before we talk about, who takes this seat. And then, we had a little bit of discussion about kind of changing the flow of the meeting or seeing if we need different meeting standards or whatever as you guys know I'm pretty easygoing about things, but that could not be everyone's cup of tea. So I want to have some space for that as well. So I don't remember, maybe it was Charles or maybe it was you, Michael, that first posited the idea of a vice chair.
I don't remember who.
I think it came from our town council rep, just because it came up that other committees had this structure and somebody
Right.
asked and it was like, well, why don't we? And honestly, no one went on to define exactly what it was in legally binding committees, like the planners or the zoning. These things have very formal roles, if not you, then them, and alternates.
Who
and
sends an email when? And
this committee doesn't typically operate with that, it's a quorum or, we all get the night off. And that's kind of the rule. So I'm super curious, those who've experienced vice chairs, it is just nice for the chair that they're not like ad hoc. I can imagine an informal role, like if not them, there is somebody else who's just an automatic backup who knows about AV and does the agenda and things. That's all I could popped into my head, given that we don't do the same legally binding things, but any advice would be welcome.
I mean, I've mentioned it before also, when we did it, I fully support it. It's like, where it's not defined, I think it can be anything we want it to be, but at a very minimal, bare bones, it's a backup that if the chairperson can't make the meeting for some reason, if we had one day you were late or delayed or whatever, it's like someone can just automatically take over. But I also think it's an opportunity if people want, and the new chair wants, to say, look, you can take certain responsibilities and, you work up this work group, you work with the work group that's over here, and I'll work with this work group or whatever, however we want to do it. But I think, it's just an opportunity to have someone else can sort of further move things along and not put everything on just one person being a chairperson.
So what I'm hearing is largely this is a secondary point of contact, or not in a bad way, but literally like a secondary point person for anything that is going on.
Right, yeah. Typically, if the chair's not available to run a meeting, the vice chair would step in and do that. That's typically what would happen.
Yeah, and my guess is like through the first term of the vice chair, like they would figure out some norms, right, between the chair and the vice chair and say, like I'll do the agenda, you do the minutes. Like, well, Mike does the minutes, he does them so well.
Bless you.
But, like I'm guessing there'd be some norms that are developed that we're not going to necessarily know today.
Totally fair, yeah.
And then every once in a while, the vice chair can also, it's helpful to like take the pulse of the meeting, like have some kind of sounding board, a meta discussion about comments like Jack's, like, gender, the like distribution of people or how meetings ran, or a little bit of retrospecting. And so I think that could develop in that relationship too, where it's not, there's just always somebody helping to evaluate and tweak.
I think that's useful. I've always liked Mike's Elmo.
Exactly.
Somebody call out enough, let's move on. Yeah. And I think a vice chair could do that.
When you're not in the hot seat, trying to
just
be
noticing,
respectful and
we've
listen
been
to
10
everybody.
minutes of everybody telling a personal story.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look at Jack moving me
It's
along.
kind of hard to.
Yeah, no, it's not a critique. It happens in every group I've been in, but having somebody who has that as an official act to just say, how close are we to the agenda?
Facilitator, timekeeper, agenda is a super helpful role.
I like it.
I was chair for 3 or 4 or 5 years or something, and I would have really appreciated just that. It was so hard to keep time and be listening at the same time and know when to cut things off. So, big trust fund.
Would have been nice. That makes a lot of sense. So does that relate to kind of the open-ended discussion of meeting standards? Is there anything else that kind of goes along with that anyone had in mind?
If you're referring to, so I brought up, doing a retrospective of the meetings, like, hey, how's it gone in the last year? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, a couple things to me is like, I think we have time commitments. We're all volunteers. So like starting and ending
Yeah.
on time. Well, we start on time, which is good, but we generally don't end on time.
Yeah,
At least I think ending is 8:30.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, making sure that we're honoring that time commitment, which also means that we're staying to the schedule and trying to Elmo things where appropriate and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the bigger ones for me, but yeah.
I mean, for myself, I think one of the things that I just sort of look at is, we did some goals and objectives at the beginning of the year, but I think we get into different things as they come up and sort of seize on things ad hoc, which is fine. But I think also we need to look back and say, okay, what were the goals and objectives? And let's, make sure we touch on those things. And I, at one point, kind of suggested we try to keep that as an agenda item each time, as a review of where we're at. And maybe you can't chase them all every time, and you don't want to, but at least make sure we're following up with things as we go along, and not just like, oh, we forgot about it, and then 9 months into the year you go, oh, geez, we were going to do this, right? Yeah.
And that's kind of ironically can come into conflict with the timekeeping part of things,
Right, but if
because maybe what we're talking about here is there needs to be a bit more of a limit on how many items we try to cover in a meeting, because we can't really have a retrospective kind of viewpoint, both in the way you spoke on and the way you just spoke on, if every meeting
Runs over.
Yeah, every meeting when we're hitting like 8:20, there's still 4 more things left on the agenda, like that we're not creating much space for that kind of perspective.
And I'm not going to suggest a solution or the way it should be. I'm just saying that I think this group should discuss it in terms of, how do you structure an agenda, new business versus old business. And, there's the old thing about there's things that are urgent and important and things that are urgent and not important. And I think, sometimes, in my view, we sort of succumb to the things that seem like they're urgent or time limited, but they may not be a big long-term priority. It's like, oh, there's a grant available, whatever. So we spend 15, 20 minutes talking on that, and instead of talking about a goal that, was a long-term goal that we want to achieve and dedicate to that. So I think some of it may be looking at how we structure the agenda each time and say, if we have 2 things that we want to discuss in depth and follow up on as part of our goals, we do those first. And stuff too.
I do tend to put stuff from the previous meetings first and then new stuff second, but point made.
Yeah, and then, just a division of old and new business. But
Yeah.
you also might, for the activities, each activity, whatever that might be that we get into, I think right from the beginning, you need to go back to the goals and see where that fits in your goals.
Kind of as the
because our
pitch.
the goals were based on, among other things, working towards satisfying the Global Covenant of Mayors agreement, and so we had a bunch of those kinds of things that we're shooting toward, and so the goals were arranged to do that, and we want to be sure you can't do everything, so we want to be sure that we're doing things that are related to our goals, that are working toward those goals, and then as agenda items, if you're going to discuss these particular activities that are being done, have some kind of code right there on the agenda item. That like the goal number, and there could be an abbreviation or something like that. You could even put it in small print on every agenda up in the right-hand corner or something. These are the goals, and you have them related, everything. So we're always seeing that activity as part of some goal. And that way, just administratively, you can go back and look at agendas and say, wait a minute, I see 1 showing up a bunch of times, and I see 3 showing up a bunch of times. Where's 2? We haven't had any 2s in 6 months. What's happening with that? And what is 2? And that kind of thing could be done before you set up the next agenda for the next meeting, so you can really track what your progress in that way toward the goals. It's hard. It's very difficult to set a set of goals and move toward that and get everybody moving toward that. But I think something more explicit
I think keeping the rubric on the agendas is a great
I think
idea.
that, it just keeps it in your mind,
You got Steve's.
What's up, Steve?
I was just going to add to the discussion that one thing that's happened occasionally is that we have guest speakers come in and make presentations. I don't know what the arrangements ahead of time have been for what we tell them about time slots, but typically what happens is that there doesn't seem to be any limits, and a large part of the agenda might get taken by a presentation. So that's just maybe something to note in the future, that how do we deal with invited presentations? Do we give people, hey, look, you got 15 minutes, please condense your stuff. We want 5 minutes for a discussion and then move on. It's just something I know we've kind of struggled with.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially limiting the discussion part after a speaker, because we can all go down the rabbit hole pretty quickly there.
Yeah, Steve, I think that's true. I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this without it being offensive. So like everybody's super passionate about stuff, right? Sometimes I think the room turns into a little bit of an echo chamber, and we all start sharing like the same viewpoint. We have like an agreement party, and it's like, okay, we're all saying the same thing, like Elmo. Enough, let's move on, right? So, and it comes from a place of passion and really being interested in this topic, but it's also like, hey, we gotta move on. So. That wasn't directed at anybody.
No.
Like, if anything, I'd do that.
But you're underlining the need for the vice chair to be the timekeeper disciplinarian.
To Mike's point about tabled business, that's also a category. I like the idea of new business. I like the idea of active streams. I love the idea of labeling them according to our goals. That would be news to me. I'm only vaguely familiar, having joined mid-year, with these goals. So that would have been very helpful. And then, without distracting us talking about tabled business, knowing what is tabled, what of our things we're deciding not to talk about. So let's just say EV grants are frozen for the next 3 months, EV funding and new chargers might be tabled, but they exist sort of down below the fold, and we know that we're going to bring them back up. I don't know, Mike, if that captures, you don't need to actually then, have a 5-minute thing about how important EV chargers are. We're good on that, but yeah.
Right, the chairperson can go blow through that in 15 seconds at some point in the meeting.
But it's an easy, durable record of sort of our memory. Cool. I like that idea.
And then I think just making space to like twice a year or maybe once a year, you're just saying, all right, let's look back and how did things go? Not only
I like
so
that
folks are seeing some of our housekeeping stuff in this meeting. So like we normally get to business a little bit quicker, but it's
this
kind of
is currently our business. And we're at the point where members are changing.
Exactly.
It's the right time. But was it you who brought up the idea of like the December or January meeting
I think Charlie brought that up.
That there's a clear seasonality to this. With the term limits and things and people leaving, there's a moment to benefit from their wisdom before they leave, to have them say it, maybe in a way that they wouldn't have, very helpful to have that exit.
It might make the most sense for the January meeting.
Yep. And then we're prepared to welcome new folks in and stuff like that. There are a few other seasons like the UNH start of the year and that we might keep in mind, the beginning of summer where we have more public events. And so there might be a couple other times where regular as rain, there's sort of a, we come back to these topics because of the time of the year. And this happens naturally with our events and things, but at least the winter one would be a great place to start, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we should definitely keep that in mind for the January meeting. And then, maybe a post-summer meeting. We seem to do a lot of stuff during the summer, and we have Durham Day kind of to start it off, and kind of as a regrouping, but I think the January one makes a lot of sense. Any other thoughts on that topic?
No, I think no committee should be taken for granted, the time that we're taking from our days and from the town. And so I do like having a little bit of like $0 budgeting, like exactly, why does this committee exist? Why was it founded? And what's our relationship to the town? There is a moment in some committees' lives where it's so built into the town mechanics, it's so built in that you essentially, you have won. It is now not the job of a committee, it's the job of the budget and the public works and other things. And so I don't think we're in any way there yet. It's just too hot, too fast. But I think, I like at least putting that on the agenda so that we know why we know what's at stake when we come. So, unlike the planning and zoning where there are committee, where there's just the business of the town that has been delegated to that group of people. We're in that voluntary zone that, it's just nice to check in on that, realign.
I think the world would be in a pretty amazing place if we weren't needed, but maybe that's my personal
I agree with you. I'm not suggesting we are, but I love just,
But that brings
back
up
to the
the
goals.
urgency of what we should be urgent about. what
And
we're doing.
there are town efforts, there's town climate goals and things that, if we're being critical and we're trying to understand our relationship to those efforts, I want to ask that question. Exactly how are we helping with those efforts and helping our staff and our town and things like that?
So no, it's good. I think we're leading to, nominating and voting for chair, vice chair. So
Who wants to do this stuff?
Well, no. So before we do that, though, I have the goals that Mike, we drafted these in 2023. Let me, if I could, just read the goals. Because again, we got some new folks, we got people from outside. And then as we think about the purpose and mission of this.
People like me who never read them before joining.
They haven't been front and center. So I just think, a lot of the comments here, it's like, hey, we've been doing work towards them, but they've just we've never been structured in that way, right? So, so goal 1, assist Durham in achieving the climate action plan goal of providing renewable energy options through community power, including 100% renewable energy option. So, Steve's taken a lot of that charge, right? Working with it. And then there's a bunch of objectives and actions. Goal 2, explore and provide education regarding other sources of renewable and green electric power. So like, how can we, sorry, what was his name again in the crowd? Sorry, Andrew?
Collins, yeah.
Like Andrew was sharing about like his zero impact house, right? So it's like, hey, how can we share about solar and grants and zero impact, like all those kind of things, education. It's an education pillar essentially. Improve energy, goal 3, improve energy efficiency and reduction of the carbon footprint of the existing residential and commercial buildings in Durham. So the built, like you were saying, right? Is that what we call it? The
Built environment.
Built environment, right? Goal 4, support EV ownership through education and infrastructure installation. So, the chargers, the grants, having the EV show day that we had, etc. And then lastly, improve and expand the community outreach and education to achieve our climate action plan goals. Right? So those are the 5 main, and everything we do does focus on that, but I think a lot of what we said is like, how do we align it a little bit more and make it clear, right? So with that, I'd motion to take nominations for.
Yeah. Who wants to be chair? Who wants to nominate someone for chair?
Thanks.
I'd like to nominate Mike Klein.
That's who I was going to nominate.
Anybody who can read goals without putting people to sleep is
Well, I think you've made a number of good points as time has gone by and different things, and I think you could provide good leadership.
I mean, who's going to shout Elmo then?
Yeah, I can still shout Elmo if it is. So I'm open to the position, but I do want to leave space if anybody else is interested as well. So like if there's, if you want to come back and be chair. No, just kidding.
No. All in.
Find a job.
Does anyone want to do vice chair? Is anyone up to that?
So are we nominating again first, or is it who?
Well,
Or if you self-select?
yeah, I think nominations go both ways.
Yeah, good
personally.
point. Good
Yeah.
Charles, are you interested in
Yeah,
vice chair?
be willing to do that? Yes. Perfect re-entry point. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm not sure as chair I'm allowed to second both of those, but I'll happily second both of those. Steve, you have your hand up again.
Yeah.
I'm
just a
sorry.
question. No, it's just a question of, do we think the chair should be like a revolving one-year kind of appointment? You know, by definition, I don't know in the past, I don't think it's had a definite term or anything.
I've been told it's kind of up to whether or not you want to keep doing it, but I don't know if that's rules or whatnot. Todd,
Terminal burnout in my case.
It's typically year to year, and if the chair wants to continue, and if everyone's happy with the work the chair's been doing, then they are often reappointed.
so it should come up as an order of business every year.
And be revisited. That's what you're saying, revisited.
You revisit it.
Also,
I think we did that once for me.
there's a nice structure to have a vice chair move into that position. I've been in some organizations where
Makes things a little
your
easier.
first spot is secretary, and then you move to vice, and then chair, and then,
Yeah, but hierarchies are
yeah, it's not really a hierarchy as much as you get familiar with the structure
Yeah.
to do it.
And we had this January meeting, which is perfect for that kind of, we'll have a retrospective, and then there'll be a, discussion of whether the chair is burnt out and willing and so forth. So I like that very much. And it's especially important to give the chair permission to step down without feeling, like I can't stress enough that it can sometimes get, burnout is not, it's not our goal.
Well, in life
It came
happens,
into
right?
conflict with my work multiple times last year. Yeah.
Exactly. And when we sense that, it can be brought up and, you've got to give people permission.
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations structure it that way. So it's assumed it's going to come up for discussion in 1 year.
Perfect.
The person can say, yes, I'll stay, or they can just opt out.
Yeah. Great questions.
So was there anybody else interested in vice chair? I mean, I think it'd be great to have you, but.
I think we have a solid ticket.
I mean, to be fair, it's kind of funny. It's like we got you, me, and those are like the only other people who and Steve who are like have been around.
Yeah.
You guys are leaving.
Yeah.
You're just new. You don't you don't vote. It's kind of a funny situation, I would
So
say.
the election, but I'll take it.
Yeah, hey, I got up here on in similar situation.
Field promotion.
But yeah, I think it makes sense to go with the motion and vote unless anyone has anything else to say on the subject.
Yeah, and again, this is a reminder, because of the Zoom, we need to do a.
Yeah, we have to do
roll
the roll call, so I was gonna.
Can you restate the motion?
Yeah, so I seconded, I guess, two motions. One for Michael Klein to be chair and one for Charles Forsey to be vice chair. So with the roll call, I think you're first up too.
We're gonna just do them once, right, for the two?
Yes, unless.
Mine ticket.
Yeah, we're.
Move the slate of chair and vice chair together.
Yeah.
As a vote.
So do you, Steve Holmgren votes aye.
I vote yes.
Okay.
I don't know if I can vote for Mike.
You can vote for, yeah. Heather, you can vote for yourself when you run for president.
Fair
So that's, we got an aye. We got an aye. We got an aye for me.
Aye.
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 So passed. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'm so thankful.
So I think, I'll set up some time with you and we can figure this out afterwards. But I want to thank you for doing the job because it isn't easy.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for putting up with me, honestly.
So thanks for doing it.
Yeah, we all think.
Especially so green on the committee. I mean, you came in and we're like, hey, here's the gavel.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's been great. I just think I'll like the solar grant program that we'll be talking about later. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more available to actually work on stuff.
Cool.
And, you know, one thing I kind of want to get going a bit more this year is, you know, running down the question of the solar on the landfill and other stuff like that, figure out a way for the town to get all of our different solar arrays managed.
I had to pick the few hours that you have, the use of the time, it's there, not typing agendas. But,
Yeah. So,
because that's the rare experience on the committee.
So I think I'll try to focus a bit more on that, but I really appreciate the sentiment. Thank you. It's been fun, I guess.
Yeah.
Lie on camera.
No, it's awesome. And I think we'll do more cool stuff. And hopefully we'll get that EV charger money.
So in the vice chair mode, or should we move on to F and get out of here by 8:30?
Thank you. Start practicing. Love it.
Nicely done.
So let's jump into the political subdivision solar grant. That's the one for April 18th, right?
So they wanted feedback by the 18th, feedback on
not an application.
Proposals. So this was not an RFP. It was a sample position to make a competitive grant here. I'm encouraged that it's state money, not federal, as I understand it. And we and I would volunteer, even though I'm not on the committee, to help, you know, do any of the dirty work of writing or editing on that as well. Because as I look back on my tenure with the committee, I realized that I was really all about energy consumption, you know, chargers, and not enough on actually finding clean power to supply these things. So I'd like to, that would be my penance as well. So my understanding is we have until the 18th to give any feedback on this. I read it over and it seems like it's written for a group like us to take advantage of. I didn't see any problem that we'd want to add, you know, some category that isn't there, but I'd be interested to hear from others about that.
Yeah, I should look into that a little bit more, but it did seem to me community solar program that they tried.
Yeah. I mean, I know, Todd, you've raised questions about, with some of our arrays like the rink, having the town manage it has been really not workable given the staffing issues. So I think we'd need to write this in a way that we work into this some management that.
You mean not the response to the RFP, but the ultimate proposal?
As part of the application.
As part of the application. I mean, they do ask for, you know, who's going to be managing this and how is it going to work, and I don't want to work at cross purposes with what I took to be in the week, the Friday update, a little comment about that kind of hassling with that.
It's actually kind of the carrot. I was hoping to use the possibility of the capped landfill array to create with that an operations and maintenance contract with whoever built it for not just that array, but for all of our legacy stuff too. Mm-hmm. So the library as well, and the police station and the rink, and maybe even the Packers Falls array. But that one's kind of its own thing and kind of already dealt with.
Under its own.
But if we can add a preventative maintenance schedule to that array too, as part of a larger deal.
Right, that
with
couldn't be part of this
sponsorship.
grant.
Exactly.
Yeah, it would be separate, right?
I don't know. I think we might be able to write it in together.
Okay, because it did sound like they said this couldn't be dovetailed with existing projects.
Yeah, but that would be kind of a side deal with whoever we
Got
were.
to dovetail it more of a,
We need someone to build and maintain it,
Right.
whatever we're applying
Yeah.
for, right?
yeah,
So this happens a bit in the industry.
yeah,
As part of the operations and maintenance deal, not only to make it worth our while, but to make it worth their while. You say, well, you have to cover all of these and provide the same amount of services to all these other things. It's technically not part of the grant money,
okay, I see.
but it ends up on the ledger.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we could make that work within the purview of a grant like this.
The thing I love about the cap landfill is it also avoids the problem with the hockey rink of involving a roof and involving a building whose form may change. We've all had, or some of us have had roof work, and the combination of roofs and solar, it is a wrinkle that is sometimes cost prohibitive. So cap landfill feels like a really nice learning from the town. You don't take a town building and necessarily involve a 30-year energy system on it without consequences.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
was just, in terms of the rink, it was just sort of an example of how things can go a little sideways in that
Yep.
we have quarterly inspection by Revision Energy, and between inspections, the mechanism failed at the rink. So it went for a couple of months without anyone knowing it wasn't working properly.
Right.
And then once it was identified it wasn't working properly, then it was a challenge in terms of, okay, who's the go-to person who's going to deal with this? So Public Works' feeling was, well, it's the rink, so it's the rink manager's job. The rink manager job was thinking it was Public Works. So we identified it was the rink manager who was going to work it through, but the rink manager is active in a whole process to potentially redo the rink and enclose it. So his interest wasn't necessarily fixing the array, it was, well, do we want to expend the money from the rink budget on fixing this array, which may need to come off the roof in a year or two if we're going to fully enclose the rink?
Right.
So how are we going to proceed? And then there was a difference of opinion about whether, what was broken between the rink manager and Revision. And so we went back and forth on that. And then there were a couple of options on which path to pursue, whether to use the same type of inverter or a different type of technology that might be more efficient but was a lot more money. And we opted to go with a less expensive mechanism because we don't know what the longevity of the roof in fact will be. But the long and short is it took months to fix something that should have been identified and fixed quickly, and all the while we're losing, revenue, we're losing power. But it's just, it's a challenge, and we see that with each of the arrays.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how you get a more hands-on service, because no O&M provider really wants to give you monitoring, like regular monitoring, to actually have catched, I saw the select tray output, it threw an error, and very often, if you have a portfolio of sites, you can pay to have someone check your monitoring platform for all of those sites on a regular basis. But if you just have one 22 kilowatt site like that, what you get is, at best, one guy shows up every quarter, walks up to the inverter, sees the green light's on, or is it orange or is it red? And, if it's green and they're getting a signal, they go home and they go to the next one.
This seems like something our committee could have helped out with. For
The way
example,
we do for the EVs.
yeah, like the
under your
EVs, I checked
stewardship.
that, and it shows if somebody complains one of the units is
And
not working.
that's kind of the point, is leaving it up to each person who's just trying to do maintenance for whatever building it is, which has kind of been the default. That's where that kind of started to fall apart, because I don't think you were informed of it until it had gone on for
some time.
Right.
Right.
By the time it got to me, I was like, this thing's been down for weeks.
I'm lost a little bit on the discussion because I think we started with what's the next step?
We
for
have
the
some
thing
tight
we're talking
deadlines, April 17th and
So I have a
April
question on
18th
the-
is comments
Oh, right.
on the
I'm sorry.
grant. What's,
So on the,
wait, sorry.
well, back to the request for
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
it says to be eligible, the system must exclusively serve the electric load of municipally owned buildings within the same city or town.
Perfect.
So does that mean, it needs to be grid connected, but is it allowed to net meter? I mean, how
Yes,
is it exclusive?
that's a not exact way, but I think they're assuming net metering there. And
That might be some feedback.
because they
we should
say
give
it's
them.
servicing, but that's a good point on what our comment should be.
Same
Because
account is the important, yeah.
yeah, because just the way New Hampshire has done its solar policy, I highly doubt that they're requiring that it has to be on the same parcel of land.
Right.
Yeah. But that's a great
It may
clarification.
be good to get that clarified.
Yeah. Because, and they say within the same town, because what they don't want is a VPP style of virtual power purchase agreement. They want it to be a true power purchase agreement or net metering agreement.
So other than the comments, what's the action after that?
Well, I think
They
by the
digest
18th, we
them.
need to give that kind of feedback to them.
Yeah.
But I think then we wait and see. I think I would like to get some context going with the people involved in this so they know Durham is curious.
I don't think the announcement said how long they would take to go over comments.
So it's not open for application at this point?
No.
Correct.
No.
No.
Okay, all right, okay.
Nor do we even know, but we're guessing this summer would be the effort for us, probably.
And I think it's reasonable to assume us commenting can only help
Yeah.
us.
Make us look active.
Yeah.
The other thing I noticed about this is similar to the EV charging grant. I was out in Portland and I think it was about a 5-day window. The state was ready to go and then they just said, oh, by the way, everybody, if you're interested, we need this by. And so I think
Abusive.
a little bit of forethought on our part soon, to talk, we've talked a lot about possibilities already, so it wouldn't be hard to pull things together, but
Be ready, you mean?
be ready.
Yeah.
And we have a sample proposal, so yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I'll take on working with you on comments, and I'll reach out to Revision again, tour that area like we talked about before the snow fell last year. And yeah, we'll try to get our comments together well before the 18th. And hopefully get some insight from Revision on what they're seeing in other towns. And, some having a commercial partner helpful. Earlier we do it, even if we don't end up using them. Yeah.
I would just say, Steve Holmgren may comment a little later on CPCNH because they're looking to stand up a solar array and they're looking for customers that might lock into that. So that might be another opportunity for us as well.
Right.
I suggest we move on.
Yeah.
Just, it sounds like a really exciting program. No, other than comments, no clear actions to this point, other than
No.
getting prepared.
And we have a subcommittee of 2. Do you need another person on that, or?
I'd love your insight.
Yeah, who else is
Yeah.
interested?
And my schedule gets crazy every so often, so I may need to offload.
Yeah, for sure.
Different points. Yeah.
Anyone else want to talk
I
solar?
would join that subcommittee, so
Okay,
the 3 of
great.
us.
So we'll have the 3 of us on that for now. And so that leads into the town sponsored solar power plan, which was the next thing I had. I believe that was for you, Todd. Am I just carrying over an old agenda item that
Yeah.
isn't really necessary? Great,
I'm not
let's
sure what
cut
that
it.
is. Yep.
I love it. I was all,
So excited to
We're getting to the order.
join the
well, I think actually the conversation we just had is kind of the beginnings of that. So.
Perfect.
I'm gonna switch because it sounds like it's pertinent. Let's do CPCNH before the EV ordinance.
Steve. Time to wake up. Are you willing to let me share my screen?
Yeah.
So I did send out a deck on the CPCNH has a project they're proceeding with, which is a solar net metering, which is a group net metering project and it's based in Warner, New Hampshire. It's in Eversource territory. So let me see if I can share this.
Is this similar to like the Jaffrey one? Is it like a similar kind of setup?
I don't remember what the Joffrey.
That was
that was Eversource doing.
Yeah,
Okay, so
it's the same mechanism, group net metering.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see this?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And so it's a big slide deck, so I'm not really going to go through that. I just want to hit a couple of slides, and we're scheduling a meeting with Todd to go over this in more detail about the applicability for, perhaps the wastewater treatment plant becoming a member. But so the basic idea is there's a group host for this site, the customer generator that owns the project. They have to, the way the contract is written at this point is they have to come up with a fully subscribed list of members before the project will get started. So right now they're in the recruitment phase for members of the group. They're looking for, and the way that the law is written, the members have to be municipal loads. So the idea is a municipal load is going to be more stable, more long-term, et cetera, et cetera. So
Do they have a capacity target for people signing on?
it's a 5 it's a 5 megawatt system. So they need to sign up enough people to cover the full 5 megawatts.
And did they tell us anything about how big a blocks they're? Sometimes when people set this up, they want to sign up blocks of 100 kilowatts at a time or something like that.
I haven't seen anything like that. What I've understood so far, they're looking to sign up customers until they've filled up the bucket, whatever, for 5 megawatts. So if they can't get enough customers by whatever the time period is they're trying to get this going, then they can kind of pull out of the contract and regroup. So that's why there's a push on now to solicit members to be on the service. To be fully compensated for the supply, the host has to be on the utility default service. So and this is Eversource territory in this case. But the group members, they have to be on the same utility territory. So Durham is Eversource territory, so that's good. But they don't have to be on the utility default service, which kind of threw me. But I've checked to make sure that is correct. So we could still buy our power from CPC&H, for example, if we wanted to.
That makes sense.
But we're subscribing our load to this project. If that makes sense to people. So it has to do with, because we've split the power part from the load part in the way that, that the system works in New Hampshire. So anyway, so this is kind of a good deal. I mean, just even that far along, it gives us good combinations. This is the category. It's a 4.9 megawatt system. The members must be governmental loads, so that would be something we would do. So the typical arrangement is we need this member load signed up ahead of time in order to get the net metering credit. To entice members to subscribe, the host shares a portion of the net metering credit back to the customers, typically 10%, although I think we're going to perhaps try to do maybe a little more than that. The member shares are proportional to the amount of load subscribed. So if you're providing 20% of the load of this project, then you'll get 20% of this rebate.
That's about what our sewer plant would be at 1 megawatt. Yeah, it'd be about a 20%, just to give you an example.
So members are compensated via a check from the host, or directly on their electricity bills via the utility. So let me go on to, I mean, there's a whole bunch of examples here, but I'm not going to go through the numbers. So here, for a simple example here, like a large thing here, annual subscribed kilowatts. So the annual credit on their bill may be $12,000. So, that's pretty nice. This would assume, for example, that the Eversource supply rate or the net metering credit is 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's higher at this point than what the going rate is. But group members would receive 12.5% metering credit. So that means the group member would see 1.25 cents per kilowatt hour as a credit on their bill. So it's basically like, getting that much money back, for each kilowatt that you're using.
So,
Let's see. Yep.
sorry,
Go ahead.
and maybe it's in the deck and I can look at, but the actual physical result of this is like CPCNH, I just want to make sure I get it. CPCNH is saying, hey, we're going to build a 5 megawatt solar array. We're looking for,
Well,
go ahead.
Let me clarify. It's actually being built by this company called Encore Renewable Energy, and then we're in contract with them. So I just want to clarify, CPCNH isn't physically building it, but,
Well, so,
okay.
Oh yeah, maybe. But okay. So if we put,
Encore is people like me.
yeah, so they're building. But I'm saying instead of like the Jaffrey one, it was Eversource doing it. In this scenario, it's CPCNH doing it. They're just subbing out to Encore to build the structure.
No, Encore developed it. They reached out to CPCNH to help them aggregate load.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. Okay.
I think you're right. I think so. CPCNH is trying to. We're acting to provide group members.
Got
So, and so we're striking deals with the people that we sign up as group members for. I assume that means that there may be other people also trying to strike deals and provide members. I wasn't clear on that part.
Yeah, so
Do we-
develop in this state, you get your site, you set everything up, and then you either talk to an organization like CPCNH, who has a group of towns already under their belt,
Right.
or you start making phone calls to towns.
Right.
And, start soliciting energy load. So they went this way to have access to this group of towns.
In my company, we consider this a purchaser-caused REC, which means that
Yeah.
by participating in this way, we allowed this project to actually happen. We weren't just buying RECs that exist in some unbundled way. And so this is we should feel very good about these RECs and participating, just because it makes, this is how this thing gets runs, this kind of commitment, this long-term appetite is the stability they need.
In some ways, they're more real because they aren't actually even RECs. They're net metering credits.
Exactly.
Right.
And RECs on top of that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think sometimes people get a little fuzzy about RECs. They say, well, is that really connected to something real and all this stuff? This is really real. I mean, if they didn't have our load subscribed, they wouldn't get this built. So, yeah, I agree with you.
New Hampshire jobs, energy not imported in, and natural gas or across the border. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So
And go ahead.
If we're gonna take so what's the downside? I guess I'm just trying to think like why.
Less savings than if we built our own.
Yeah.
The savings will be less over time.
But
it'd be
Yeah, so,
Exactly.
so
it'd
this
be cheaper than Eversource. It'd be cheaper than the CPCNH rate.
it'll be cheaper than Eversource, because you're getting 1.2 cents off of your bill for every kilowatt hour, for example. But Encore is it's a PPA arrangement. So Encore is making a flat rate, that's part of their contract for whatever power they generate, et cetera.
The pie split up between more parties.
And would this help? I'm assuming like goal 1, which is achieving the climate action of.
Take the sewer plant right off the towns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a downside if the prices invert on us. I mean, this is an agreement to pay this price for a very long time. So, I mean, we always talk about how bad we are at arbitrage and how, I think we're connected. It doesn't fluctuate, right? This is a long-term commitment to a particular.
I believe they're 10-year contracts.
It's a long-term commitment, but there are provisions for them to change it during the term of the contract if both parties agree, so they can change it. If, for example, the PUC, the regulatory environment changes so that we can get a better deal by directly selling the power. If the net metering problem is solved, for example, then we might revert to a different model.
Then there are off ramps. Okay.
There are off ramps here. I should really let you guys do this presentation. You know this stuff much better than I do. But as part of the arrangement, CPC&H is going to buy the RECs from the project. So, CPC&H sells, green power, which is based on RECs. So now we can buy RECs that are based on a project in New Hampshire, that we are actually part of, and they'll actually be cheaper RECs, but they'll be more meaningful on top of that. So, that's a good part of the story here. It's a gravel pit up in Warren, New Hampshire. Let me see. This is more of the details here. I don't know if we want to get into that, but basically this is how.
Probably not for time.
Yeah, the pie gets spread up. So the net effect on each party, Encore earns their agreed upon PPA price. Group members earn bill credits of like 1.1 or, depending on this example, per kilowatt hour for pledging their load. CPC&H buys RECs for less than the current market price. So, it's pretty much a win-win for everybody. And that's a pretty good deal.
And it's a stroke of the pen, if I'm understanding correctly. It's a pledge of our load, and it's an agreement not to seek better prices elsewhere for, say, this large sewer plant load.
It's an agreement to purchase.
Right. For example, there is if you pledge your load, I believe there's a 12-month notice. So you can't just back out. You have to give 12 months notice. If, for example, we put a solar array to provide power for the wastewater treatment plant, so we don't have that load anymore, we have to give them 12-month notice that we're going to be, changing our load substantially. That shouldn't be a big deal, because if we have something to change our load substantially, it's probably going to take 12 months to make that happen anyway.
Minimum with interconnects.
Yeah. So that's one downside. There is, so there is kind of a 12-month limit.
Never
on
seen
the
an
off-
interconnection in 12 months.
Yeah. So I think we'd be safe for 2 years and yeah.
Steve,
So, yep.
two questions. One, I'm not familiar with the Encore name. Others here may be. But how much vetting has that had through CPC&H, and is there someone at CPC&H that is very well versed in this?
I mean,
Yeah, there is a
very well
there is a-
regarded company in my industry.
It is? Okay, good. Thank you.
They
I
mostly
know it's
do
been-
these 5-megawatt projects. They've been doing them for years and years and years in Massachusetts and New York City and New York State.
So there's lots of references that have been checked.
Oh yeah, you can Google them. You'll see plenty.
So the second question is, in terms of CPC&H is going to be actually the contractor for all of this, and the town would have to
No,
sign.
we-
The town would have to sign a contract with CPC&H, but CPC&H is going to do the deal with Encore, right?
Yeah, we're gonna do the deal in the sense that we're signing up the subscribers in advance of their deadline, so that if we sign up enough load, then the deal will go forward. Beyond that, how much are we entwined with this? I'd have to go back and ask more questions or read the deck.
As a load taker, the paperwork will state that we will be getting power from this company, generating power at this place, at this price. So from the point of view of the town, we'll actually technically be signing an agreement with Encore, not with CPC&H. CPC&H is more of a broker in this situation.
Right.
So I guess the other question is, then maybe it's a question for Todd or Steve, either one. But in terms of reviewing this, in terms of making sure that we know we've got a good deal that, there's all kinds of, oh, it's a standard contract, everybody signs it. Yeah, I've heard that 1,000 times. There's no such thing as a standard contract. Every contract can be modified one way or the other. The question is there someone that CPC&H has in the legal front, or the town has, that is a specific energy-related attorney that, for an extra $1,000 or so, can actually look at this and say, this is good except for this clause here is not something that should really be in here or something.
Oh, I can get the town and energy attorney. I've dealt with these contracts plenty of times.
Yeah.
We can vet it. In fact, our current scenario at the wastewater plant is we take our load of 1.2 million per year, and we're purchasing quote-unquote green power from Constellation New Energy.
Yeah.
We pay a little bit of a premium to buy it's wind energy, and it's through REX. And then just 2 months ago, we executed an agreement with Freedom Energy Logistics for virtual net metering, which essentially accomplishes the same thing, but it's on a month-to-month basis. So with a month's notice, we can cancel. And we did that knowing that this or something like it might be in the future. And our current arrangement with Constellation runs through November of this year. So
This doesn't come online until Q2 26 anyway.
all right, so we're going to have to kind of figure out the timing with all of this.
So it sounds like, Steve, this is informational for the group. Todd, for you, it's
Exactly.
like any like, oh my gosh, red flags going up, but nobody's really hearing it, and then you got the ball from here.
Right.
Is that accurate? Like,
Yeah, well, when we learn more, I could envision Steve and I coming back with more information to say, what do you think? Does this look like it makes sense or not?
Yeah.
But it's so dynamic because like we're locked into one right now. The rates have gone up quite a bit. You know, if we had a rearview mirror, we would have locked in for another extension, 7 months ago maybe, but we didn't. We were waiting to see if some solar project might come forward, and we weren't sure how it would play out. So we'll see where we are.
And this deck has a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of simulations they've done about what would this have looked like if we'd had this, 10 years ago. And then they have all these different Monte Carlo simulations about, what if this goes up, this goes down, but, so it's, I'm not going to get into any of that, but it's, so there's a lot of work that's gone into this to try to look at the various scenarios, and it'll take time to go through all this. Okay, so thank you. That was like,
Thank you, Steve.
it was like you said, for information that we're not asking the committee to take any action at this point, but just kind of know that, that the town is looking into this, and we'll, like Todd said, we'll report back later. Let me unshare my screen. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, for information, I think this might be the third array like this that's ever been built in New Hampshire. And the rules came out, I think over 5 years ago. So for a long time, people didn't know how this program was going to get administrated at all. So it'll be interesting to see how the contracts work out.
I mean, if I'm connecting a couple dots, just Todd, way long time. I just make sure I get this. Like, there was Maine and Mass and Vermont, and it was like, oh, solar arrays everywhere. And then there was like New Hampshire, where it had like nothing. It was like a solar desert,
Yep.
right? So that's what you're saying.
Solar. Yeah.
They're starting to figure that out,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
New Hampshire can start participating.
And so the group net metering bill and later law that they brought out was kind of created as an approach to deal with net metering in a way that was a little bit less reliant on state administration, because a lot of community solar markets in the United States, the state itself has taken on a role of keeping the utilities and the developers honest, which has allowed for community solar providers to have individual like residential sign-ons, which of course takes more people and is therefore a much larger management problem. They went this municipally sponsored route as kind of like a tester, because obviously there's a lot less municipal load in New Hampshire than residential load, but the state itself doesn't actually have to administrate it, because you have to come with a sheet of paper already set up that says, this is how many people we have, we've covered 100% of the array. In Massachusetts, you can turn it on and then you have so much time to fill up the array. So you can, it was a much riskier way to build here in New Hampshire for a long time, which is why nobody used those rules for years and years. I mean, I pitched building here in New Hampshire at 3 jobs, and they're all like, the finance people are like, no, the risk is too high because you have to get this municipal load. So it'll be interesting to see if the rates end up being super stable, because that could end up being very financially lucrative, and will also give a few conservative energy policy people a nice feather in their cap.
Get to H and J before 8:30. We have 8 minutes. Do we want to move on to the EV ordinance? We'll probably go a little late. I'm guessing, but we can also table something as well.
I'll talk fast. So Emily and I met with Paul Rasmussen and Michael Barrett on March 21st. And it was somewhat time limited because Michael had another meeting afterwards, but the sort of nutshell of the meeting was he thinks that most of the things that we've drafted would probably try and fit into the zoning rather than into planning, site plan regulations per se, except for the single family and duplex issues, which might need to be addressed elsewhere. And that I wasn't totally clear on where he thought that was going to go, but that was sort of the takeaway from the meeting.
Sorry, site plan is within the zoning ordinance, right?
No, it's a
in
separate,
the other thing?
it's a separate document that the planning board oversees itself and can change.
Yeah.
So I think, the assumption is site plan would be where residential and multifamily would go.
Well, originally, that table that I had put it in, the 10.1, that came out of the site plan
Right.
ordinance. But they're saying that most of this stuff, they think they want to try and get into the zoning.
Right, but you said
But the single family and duplex component of it might wind up elsewhere.
and I was saying the elsewhere would be in site plan.
Perhaps, but, we didn't get to it. We're actually having another meeting coming up this coming Friday.
I'm
So
sorry, I was just trying to come up with
This was
another
to be
place it would
continued.
go to.
So the gist of it was, if you got into a little bit more technical detail than I thought they would in the first go-around. I thought we'd just sort of go through the ordinance and just sort of answer questions and make sure that they understood everything, but Paul kind of jumped in directly on some of the items, and we got into a discussion about some of the same stuff that we sort of had hashed through here. So I sort of told him we've kind of hashed through that. This is not just like the first draft stuff. Questioning, the single family, whether or not that should be something that's dictated or not.
Right.
And then some of the things that they thought needed to be improved on clarity-wise was on the definitions on, well, not definitions, but in section C 2A, where it talks about with renovations and substantial improvements, and we intended that, we had footnoted that relative to what Emily had described as sort of generally with 50% or more the value of the building being renovated, counts as that. In this particular thing, they said probably need to define that more specifically to this particular purpose. Got into the question on the issue of when there's a change in the electric panel service up to 200 amps or greater than 200 amps. That was sort of a point of discussion for a while in terms of how that would be defined also, and there was some, so this is kind of a repeat of some of our discussions.
I'm sure it's in our minutes somewhere, me being like, Michael's not gonna like this.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Then there was a specific question about in C2D, the renovation of a garage. We had said that if the garage was being renovated, that it might trigger the fact then of putting it into a single family. And so that came up as a question. It's like, okay, so what's renovating a garage? Is that putting a new garage door on? Or is that building a new building attached to the thing, or, you know, whatever? So it's like, yeah, it's good legitimate questions, but, you know, sort of dug right in on the first go-round. And so those are some of the points, the key ones that I had documented during the meeting. One of the things, so Audrey had sent us those appendices that are potentially adoptable, and I had read through them all just to see what was in them and stuff. And so the one that's Appendix RE on EV charging, I do think there's some things in there. There's some definitional things, which, since that's now accepted as code language in New Hampshire, I think we might want to adopt into our stuff. We've got similar definitions, and what we had taken was sort of, you know, out of other federal regulations or things like that was pretty standard, because they asked that question. I said, where'd you get these definitions from? I didn't footnote where I got them from, but they were standardized language that I think we all recognize.
Yeah.
But some of those things in there I think would be possibly...
The definitions came from the other EV ordinance.
In Lebanon?
Yeah, it was Lebanon ordinance, which was based on the previous round of definitions.
Right, but some of the definitions that wound up in the final text was stuff that I had put in and sort of modified as we went along with some of it. But,
cool.
But the bottom line is I think now that we've got this Appendix RE, maybe lean on that more, because it's you know, sort of been accepted by New Hampshire folks for the...
So my question is, did they give you any feedback that would prevent the ordinance from going in front of the town council?
No, so I'm just going through quickly what the meeting was about. So that was that. The other thing was that, just to point out so everybody's aware of this, in the Appendix RE, and they talk about the requirements for charging, they actually specify in terms of the amperage, and they were talking there about individual ones requiring a minimum of 30 amp, 208, 240 circuit, rather than 40, which is what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And there's also provisions in there in terms of if you have 3 or more chargers on a new situation, that you can use an energy management system in accordance with NFPA 70, I believe.
71.
70. And you can use 2.1 kilovolt amps, which works out to basically 10 amps per charger on a shared thing. So you've got a management system that's going to manage the power.
Very slow.
Yeah.
You're not doing a big trip the next day.
Well, no, it's not limited to 10 amps, but it works out to an average. Basically, they're saying you could put 3 systems on a 30 amp if you have an energy management system that can control the flow of power so you don't overcharge something somewhere.
But yeah, it's still slow if all 3 are hooked up.
But the bottom line is, I'm just saying that's in that appendix, which I don't know if everybody's read all that or not, but that's just something that could be a consideration down the road. The bottom line is we're going to meet this Friday again. Emily said she's going to try and meet again with the group, just to sort of help shepherd it through. And I was very happy that she was there that day, because when they dug into the zoning stuff, it was like some of that stuff was going over my head, but she was familiar with it, so that was good. And then they're working, and I didn't go back and check, but perhaps someone on the other side of the table can address this, where they're at with the PUD ordinance, that they wanted to get the PUD ordinance through and done before they tackled this. Planned Unit Development Ordinance. So they're working on that at the moment. I don't think that it's done, but
No,
this didn't look like it was going to be reaching to the planning board for discussion for another couple or a few meetings, perhaps.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think the energy management stipulation is fine. 30 amps on a 208 is theoretically the minimum.
Well, I don't think we're going to have to answer that question specifically this Friday, but
No, you just
yourself
said you
or
read
any
them,
other
so I
engineer
was
here wants to
responding to those.
look at it, Charles, and just have availability of having read that appendix and say, if somebody wants to change that wording to make it a little bit more flexible, maybe that's an option to take that language and use it. So anyway, that's the quick nutshell of it.
Uh-huh.
Remarkable. That's a lot.
Yeah.
In a little time, thank you.
Yeah.
And I probably missed a few things, but that's my notes on.
Yeah, Rasmussen will dive in real quick.
Pardon?
Rasmussen, I'm not surprised he dived
yeah, he
into it
was like-
super quick. Yeah.
Which is good.
To our agenda comment, this will clearly stay on and come back on in our next meeting for a little update, and we'll
Yeah,
keep at
yeah,
this
well, I
in
mean-
more detail as you get deeper. Great.
Yeah.
Probably. The last thing I had was Energy Week, New Hampshire Energy Week. I think it's in May. I believe Em brought that up last time. It seemed to me that we were talking about being a bit more focused on Durham Day or Earth Day or something like that, but that is on the agenda, and it sounds like we might want to have a subcommittee for kind of coming up with some ideas about what we want to do for this next spring, summer public outreach stuff. So instead of diving into like, what are we going to do for Energy Week, I just thought maybe we should start a subcommittee on that.
Well, I guess the question to me is like Earth Day is April 22nd. Energy Week is May 5th.
Yep.
So like,
And then Durham Day is
June
8th.
something.
so the first two feel like they passed. Like, you know,
I
we're not
agree.
gonna- yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not touching it.
Yeah. So like, it sounds like Durham Day is our kind of only opportunity this year, but maybe for next year we could think about Energy Week as an option
So subcommittee focusing on Durham Day.
on
then.
Durham Day.
Yeah.
Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah, and I think, and given the timing of that, we've still got, one more meeting, but a subgroup should be working between now and next meeting to come back with something so that we can be ready for June.
Yeah.
How do, all right, so yeah, it's probably good for a sub-meeting. I guess I don't even know the logistics for signing up for Durham Day. Is it just like, hey, Todd, we need a table?
I had contacted
Rachel.
Rachel
Rachel Kowalski,
director
yeah.
last year and asked for a table, and she said, yeah, sure, and
Okay.
they take care of positioning it, but we just need to contact
Staff
them
it.
again, and I mean, I can do that again if you
Yeah.
want, but
I have all the
mind doing
signs and
everything?
stuff at my house, by the way.
Yeah.
I have all the signs and stuff at my house still, if anyone's wondering where they went.
I mean, it sounded like, if I remember Durham Day last year, that worked well. It was like, so I think what we're saying is like a rinse and repeat of what we did last year with maybe different education and messaging stuff. So CPCNH stuff, subcommittee can work it, but like, that's what it sounds like.
They don't have a date yet, and they're we're working on exactly how we want to do it this year, if we want to do it daytime or maybe evening on a weeknight.
Interesting.
So that's being talked about right now.
Okay, great. Well, I think that gives us an excuse to hold off on actually forming a subcommittee.
Due to other people stonewalling.
We'll wait for the announcement on that, and then we'll get to planning. I mean, I do agree, rinse and repeat, and CBC and H will probably be a pretty big focus, and we'll talk about what we want to do about EV education, heat
Maybe
pumps.
a good time to highlight our goals. It's like, hey, these are our goals of the
Yeah,
committee.
if we want to make another sign, right?
well, given that we're not going to meet again until the beginning of May, and it may be as early as the first week in June, potentially.
I just don't know the date, not sure.
Yeah, I thought last year it was the end of the first week.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we
I would suggest that maybe we do, people select a work group and at least have a meeting between now and May and sort of
Okay, great.
get something sketched out so that we're not like trying to scramble at the last minute. And it's a good opportunity, and certainly, I don't think anybody has thought about doing another EV showcase this year. I think it's,
So it sounded like you were willing to be part of that?
yeah, I'd be willing to work with the Durham Day thing, but yeah.
And so,
Anyone else?
Last year it was June 22nd, but what you're thinking,
Oh, right.
we had the special
rain delays.
Revolution 1774 was the week before, so we had two things back to back.
Okay.
So
Oh, that's right. Well, anybody else interested in working the subcommittee for
Durham Day.
Durham Day? There you go.
Super.
Then maybe we'll have some new members that can join us for this one by that time.
Already?
Get your feet wet.
now.
And then Mike, do you mind just emailing Rachel and saying, hey, look, we
Yeah.
want to do something, but not
Yeah.
100% sure what, but just so we get our name
Yeah.
in the queue.
Yeah, and if you want like an inventory of the signs we have and stuff like that, email me. I can take pictures of them or just say what they have and if I think we need anything else. And then you and I are gonna look at the solar grant
Right.
and try to get that ball rolling with Charles.
A little bit of help, yep.
Okay. So
And
I think
also, is there time for one roundtable thing very quick, which is, Jack, you wanted to hand over the EV passwords and things through Karen?
Sure.
And I'm happy to
That's-
double up, have two
Okay.
admins. If
Yeah.
anybody else wants it, fine. I was the admin that you took over for me,
Yeah.
so it's only
Yeah.
only fair.
Oh yeah, I'd like it too.
Okay.
Okay.
Sort of both. By the way, that password should be changed. I've gotten a couple of security notices that it's out there.
I thought you were
Yeah.
just going to say the password. I thought you were going to say the password is.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it.
Pork chops.
And in an ideal world, we have our own accounts with our own passwords, and we have double administrators and redundancy,
Right.
so we'll work on that.
Yeah, good. I just wanted to say, I did have a quick bit of good news about that. This past month, March, we hit our all-time high of use of the town charges. We had 235 charging sessions, and we had, let's see, how many unique, 75 different cars using these things.
Anecdotally, it's been packed, yeah.
Yeah, over 50% usage during the daylight hours.
That's awesome.
Just like-
And more than 50% is actually a bad thing. You want them at about 50% so that you can actually have a shot at getting one.
Getting a spot. They're
So-
54%, I think
That's
is our
like-
number.
That's the number we dreamed about.
Yeah, but the
Yeah,
real
the
dream
60s,
is, this, in 1 month, we made it easy for EV drivers to save 8,666 pounds of carbon dioxide.
right.
So, that's part of our goal. And then just one other thing, the EV grant, I put out feelers to the original email group. I had about 50 people on that list, BCC'd, and a number wrote back and just had suggestions. And it turns out the town's already done what people are suggesting. We got a number of laudatory comments about the resolution that we sent up the road from, was that January or February? Yeah. But still, things are frozen. The most recent message from the Federal Highway Administration is still sitting on the money, and it's just frozen. So I'll let you know if I hear otherwise. But that's a little bit of sad news.
Sophie Goodwin, our UNH Sustainability Fellow, is going to be sending out the working draft of our updated climate action plan. And
nice.
so when you get it, take a look at it. The headliner really is that the next iteration of reductions really need to come from residents. It's not the municipality, it's residents, and how can we help residents to make those kind of innovations?
And that's a fellowship that comes up every year if you guys want to apply for it.
And the report is every 10 years, right? So we did
Yeah.
it in 2015.
Well,
What's her title?
it's our climate action plan.
Is she-
No, but Sophie's title.
Sophie's our UNH Sustainability Fellow.
Yeah, she's my coworker.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yes,
I
that's
think,
good.
I think she's graduating. But not
Yep.
sure.
Yes.
I think I might be taking her job.
You got to get through him.
So the climate action plan was a relatively new thing. We, for our initial one, adopted it in 2022 and for 2 years. And because we were getting our feet wet with it. And now this next one will be for 5 years. So it'll go from 25 to 2030.
Awesome. All right, motion to adjourn. Your final gavel strike. Unless there's anything.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm not doing a roll call. Last actor.
Yeah, thanks a lot.